Welcome to Matters of the Heart podcast with Rashonda, Thursday's Tip Edition. Do you need some advice? Need some ideas to improve a specific situation, whether in the world around you or just an individual fix? Well, that's what Thursday's Tip is all about. I don't just tell you how to do it, but I'll always offer a couple of tips on things you can do to succeed in the process. Thursday's tips are geared towards making us feel empowered, starting from the inside out. So, what are you waiting for? Come on in and let me share a couple of tips with you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Thursday's Tip episode. You're listening to the Matters of the Heart podcast with Rashonda. On this platform, I talk about inspiration, motivation, wellness, and mind peacefulness here. I share experiences, advice, and knowledge to help you and myself improve our life and learn more. And the content is always 100% positive, guaranteed, or your money back. A big welcome again to you. Thank you so much for being here and listening. I always appreciate your time. So, August is here, and while we're not officially in fall yet, hold your pumpkins. It is the season of back to school and back to full-time work for most. Vacations are somewhat done, and the traffic will go back to being very hectic now that school will soon be back in session. So busyness and rush times are upon us, which means we can get ourselves back into some crazy routines. And one of those stressful routines has a lot to do with our bosses, which we know are not all created equal. So today's topic is answering work emails on the weekends. Yes or nah? Okay, like no way. Answering work emails on the weekends, is it a go? Is it a yes or is it a no? Okay. Have you been a victim of answering emails during your child's birthday party or while you're spending some much needed time with either yourself or loved ones? I've been there and done that, and you probably have too. In most cases, I've been caught between a rock and a hard place and wondering if and should I answer emails from work on the weekends. Well, after years of doing it, I decided a while back to stop. And if you're still answering work emails on the weekends, then you should really stay tuned. I'll be right back. One day, and she began to discuss how her boss emails her on the weekends. And this wasn't a once in a while occurrence. This was every single weekend, nonstop. As she began to describe the feelings of job commitment that come over her when she taps the respond button, I began to think about how I too was in her same shoes and would answer all sorts of emails from work on my weekends and days off. Yes, you can say I was quite the committed employee. As someone who wanted to always make a good impression on my boss, I later realized that I had taken on much more than I could chew. Model employee, you could say, but was that nice sentiment coming across to my boss because I answered multiple emails on the weekend? No. One email answered at 10 p.m. one night changed my life forever. It was a night in which I had nothing to do, and I just happened to browse my work email, which I had installed on my phone, and saw that my boss had emailed me to ask a question. To their surprise, I answered them back. I wasn't expecting you to answer this time of night, they explained. And I said, oh, it was no problem. While they assured me that answering emails after hours or on weekends was unnecessary, I continued doing it. They soon took it as available at all times of night, okay? And used it to their advantage, not only for them, but for multiple people after them. I set myself up as the availability girl, which you could email at any time of night and get a response. Answering work emails during your personal time can be complicated. Initially, while this was fun and liberating, it soon became a nightmare. Suddenly, I was getting emails at the most awkward times of the day or night. They usually trickled in when I was spending time with family and friends or having a mental health day. Okay, we all need that. What had I started? My life was beginning to turn into a 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day job. I suddenly realized that I had no time for myself as I soon started going into work on weekends, Sundays included, and staying extra hours after work and answering emails. On top of all that, my job seemed like it was becoming a never-ending story. Once you put yourself out there to be the it person, everything changes, including your personal life. I abruptly decided to shut down the email on my phone one day. I also stopped going in on weekends, and while I have my current job email on my phone now, I only check it or respond when I feel it's an emergency that needs to be handled immediately. If not, then it can wait till Monday. You see, I felt that if I answered emails on the weekend, that it would make me a more valuable employee. But what it made me was a robot. I never received any awards, recognition, or cool points from the boss because I answered an email after hours or on weekends, and my pay definitely didn't change. So, who was I really doing this for? And why had I subjected myself to this task? Because I wanted to show my boss that they could count on me no matter what. And while that's all good, it wasn't good for my health, sanity, or livelihood. So something had to change and change fast. Do you feel obligated to answer work emails after hours or on weekends? Well, if you're feeling the pressure, don't worry. I got a couple of quick tips that will hopefully change up your work game. Tip number one, and you might think this is very simple, just say no. I know that's simple, honestly. Just say no. There's no harm in saying no. Now, don't get me wrong. We all work jobs in which we want to be relevant and deemed a good employee. But there must be a line crossed somewhere. When we constantly say yes to everything, our boss shoots our way. We put ourselves in a position not to have feelings, a say, or an opinion about anything. It's okay to say no sometimes, especially if it's going to interfere with your life outside the workplace or office. They can't fire you for saying no. Now, I know you may think twice about this and you might be like, girl, yes, they can. But this brings me to one of my favorite movies, The Devil Wears Prada, when Miranda, played by Meryl Streep, asked Andrea, played by Anne Hathaway, to go to Paris instead of Emily, played by Emily Blunt. Andrea knew that Emily wanted to go and had been preparing for that trip all year. She felt terrible and said no. However, Miranda put on the pressure by telling Andrea that if she didn't do it, she could forget about getting a recommendation from her and working anywhere in that city. Now, Runway, which was the company's name, it was one of the most prestigious places to work, so getting a recommendation from the CEO was everything. So with that being said, Andrea took the bait, putting her between a rock and a hard place. And in the end, however, Miranda threw that decision Andrea made back in her face, telling her that she had a choice, and her choice was to step on someone else to get ahead. Everyone has a choice, Miranda stated, leaving Andrea to feel like crap. So yes, we all tend to become a pawn to our bosses due to their outlandish comments. But I told that little movie scenario to say we all have a choice in the matter, no matter what. And your choice is your choice. I've always been told to never argue with the one that's able to hire and fire you. However, my outside life is my choice, and so are the decisions I make for myself. Which leads me to my next tip, which could calm things, because when you know better, we can respond and act accordingly. Tip number 2, have a conversation with the boss. Check with your boss to see what their idea of after hours entails. You might want to see where your boss stands on how they want you to respond to emails during your off hours, and is it a requirement? Personally, I used to have a boss that would send me emails after hours, but only because if they didn't do it right away, they would forget to. And working at night was sort of their downtime in which they used to respond to emails. So get your boss's opinion on what they would like you to do. You may also want to let them know that your off hours and weekends are personal times. Express the fact that you may not respond immediately or until the next workday if they send an email. This will let your boss know your stance on after hour emails, and they should not expect a response. As my mama used to say, you start out how you're going to finish. And if you don't start nothing, there won't be nothing. Which brings me to my next tip. Stay tuned. Expectations. Watch out. The more you put yourself out, the more will be expected of you. Ever noticed how when you do something for a person one time, they tend to take advantage of you doing it that one time and consistently come back to you again and again, expecting you to do the same thing? That's how we can become when we give of ourselves more than we should. It's okay to be friendly and kind, but at the end of the day, you're required to perform your job duties. That's what you get paid for. Anything over that can lead people to expect more from you than you're willing to give. And that goes for the workplace and your personal life. Only give what you can afford to give away because your time is precious. And this is the last tip. Tip number 4, self-care is the best care. Self-care will save your life. So whether it's concerning work or anything else that may be pressing in your life, taking care of yourself, including your sanity, is and should be the first priority. I've been on jobs where I've overexhausted myself trying to prove or show how good of an employee I was. And at the end of the day, I was the one with the swollen ankles, extreme headaches, and body aches. I was stressing myself out while making others feel comfy and cozy. Just as your boss needs their time, so do you. You are no good to them, the business, or the organization if you're spazzed out, stressed, or in the hospital. Learn to turn off your email notifications from work or just don't answer them at all. While that may be hard to do because it was for me, you must realize that you're only one person, and if something happens to you, will they come to your aid? No. Yes, they'll be concerned. They may send some flowers, but the job must and always will go on, whether you're there or not. And that's sad to say, but in reality, we only get one life, one chance, and one opportunity to make the best of it as much as possible. And I can think of a million things for you to do besides answering that annoying email message from you know who. Life is short, my friend, and those after hours or weekend emails can wait. Life, unfortunately, cannot. Well, that's all the time I have for today. Remember, there's a new podcast episode every first Sunday, which is Sunday's Thoughts or Sunday's Word. There's also a Thursday's Tip podcast episode every second Thursday of the month. So if you like episodes such as this one, make sure you listen and subscribe. It's totally free. And whatever platform you're listening on will let you know when there's a new episode available. So whatever works for you, it works for me. Take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. That was it for today's episode. I hope you were inspired and feel positive vibes whenever you spend some time with me, Rashonda, and the Matters of the Heart podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to join me next time as we dive deeper into our spiritual, mental, and physical journey. You can follow Matters of the Heart podcast on Facebook to stay tuned for what's coming next. Feel free to share the episodes while you're here. Also, stay with me by subscribing wherever your favorite music and podcast stations reside. And as always, watch your heart because its actions will follow. Thank you for listening.